Chapter 6. Erasing Illusions. Illusions represent unreal or incorrect perceptions. They are fantasies, imaginings, false notions, misbeliefs, and misconceptions. In the exciting process of learning to communicate with yourself, and it is a process, you develop an increased sensitivity as to how your thinking and feeling processes operate. As your awareness and sensitivity becomes more finely tuned regarding what and how you're thinking, you will become more astute in recognizing each thought, whether negative or positive, as it enters your mind. Thoughts are an indication of what you're feeling at the moment, feelings of which you may be totally unaware. So, the more you recognize and label each thought as it occurs, as it pops into your mind, the more proficient you will become at getting in touch with what you're actually feeling. The whole process, the thinking, feeling process, is so subtle that you will want to develop this heightened awareness on a consistent basis in order to experience the results you are seeking. When a feeling is aroused, it's usually triggered by a belief or a system of beliefs that you've previously established. When this happens, the feeling will be followed by a flood of thoughts or by more feelings. This concept may seem complicated, and perhaps you're wondering why I'm putting such emphasis here. Unless you learn where the focal point begins, the effectiveness of what you can accomplish will be limited. Your prime responsibility is to tune in to your inner dialogue. Discover those thoughts in your mind that keep looking for a home. Learn to recognize mindless chatter, prattle, or self-talk. As you listen to your inner dialogue, focus on what it is you are saying to yourself. This is where the transfer point or the shift to awareness begins. Illustrate this concept. Let's look at a hypothetical situation. One day at work, you unexpectedly receive a notice that the boss wants to talk to you later in the day. This is thoroughly unexpected, and you're naturally curious as to what the boss wants. Depending on the type of person you are, you may start wondering what it is you could have done wrong, and you frantically begin reliving the past few days or weeks in an attempt to locate the reason for the boss's request. You imagine every reason he could have to call you on the carpet. The longer you have to wait for your appointment with him, the more nervous you become. Your vivid imagination works overtime, and you become paralyzed with the thoughts of horrible consequences that you may have to suffer for whatever you did wrong. In other words, your thoughts go wild as you anticipate meeting with the boss. Now, where did those thoughts come from? Why did they become so blown out of proportion? How did these thoughts cause you to feel inside as you were anticipating this meeting? On the other hand, you may be the type of person who sees this situation as a positive indication of your boss's appreciation for your superb performance as an employee. It all has to do with your prior internal programming. You could be having thoughts of what the boss may say to commend you for your dedicated contribution and how he wants to reward you. My point is this: be mindful of your inner dialogue. You have a choice of what that dialogue will be. If your inner dialogue is negative rather than positive, you'll want to start processing with the script I will share with you in the next chapter. In order to change your inner dialogue, to experience rewarding and peaceful results, instead of with the conflict of jangled, frazzled, disrupted nerves, it's necessary to change this inner dialogue, this inner self-talk. In the above example, You will begin to see how thoughts start very innocently, and with the passing of the day become runaway. Unruly feelings and emotions are a definite side effect. Look at the illusion these negative thoughts created. The illusion of being a failure, or possibly losing your job. Sometimes you may encounter unexplainable feelings that get your attention before thoughts enter the scene. One example of feelings coming first instead of thoughts is on a morning when you get out of bed and suddenly realize that you're feeling something you don't enjoy feeling, but you're unable to identify the feeling. Just ask yourself, what am I feeling, and where do I feel it? If an answer does not come to you, and it is impossible to identify what you're feeling, see how the word blah fits. This happened to a friend of mine. She immediately became sensitive to the fact that she was having a new experience. She was willing to be further sensitive, aware, and to listen, accept and own what she was experiencing. She then went through the script literally, describing her feeling as blah in the script, as explained in the next chapter, when she replaced the blah feeling with I'm excited, I'm happy, I'm energetic and enthused about life. Her blah feeling shifted immediately. The more you get in touch with and identify what you're really feeling, the more capacity and ability you'll have to change your negative internal programming, self-talk, or inner dialogue. As you continue to be responsible and accountable for your thoughts and feelings, processing them to resolve them with the tool as explained in the next chapter, you will eventually become the person you really want to be, instead of remaining the person your incorrect perceptions have created. We create illusions from our incorrect perceptions and our belief systems on a daily basis. Belief systems are also created by perceptions. Sometimes these perceptions are correct, but most of the time they are incorrect. Many of us already have long-standing illusions and belief systems created by incorrect perceptions, either about life or about ourselves. These illusions often cause us to become stuck in a rut. For instance, you've heard of or known someone who is very thin, but their reality, their internal dialogue, is that they need to lose weight. They constantly feel they are too fat. No matter what anyone says to convince them they look great, they will not accept it. Their reality perceives that they are overweight. Your reality perceives that you are just right. Most of us maintain these same kinds of illusions in different areas of our lives. Our own illusions can be just as erroneous or incorrect as in the example above. It has been my experience that as our awareness or our mindfulness of what we're thinking and feeling sharpens and expands, we begin to eliminate these illusions by substituting undesirable thoughts and feelings with positive, sound, constructive thoughts and feelings. Thus, we enable ourselves to correct our misperceptions, incorrect beliefs, and illusions. After we strip ourselves of our old, worn-out, tattered illusions, we will scarcely recognize ourselves as the same person. This is exciting to witness, as the majority of us would like to improve ourselves. As we learn to shift the negative to positive in our thought and our feeling patterns, we can reap peace of mind, more joy, and more happiness. Instead of allowing your thoughts and feelings to run away with you, creating all kinds of excuses or blocks to keep you from moving forward on your journey to self-improvement, view this process of shifting and altering your thoughts and feelings as you would if you were practicing a musical instrument, or learning to read words. When you first learn to read musical notes or words, it takes concentrated effort, and you have to name the notes or say the words one by one. It doesn't take very long, however, before you're able to look at a measure or a line and read all the notes or words in one or two glances. The only difference you're experiencing in this process is that you are practicing monitoring, ruling, managing, or governing your thoughts and feelings. Your ability to accomplish this goal will depend upon the intensity of your desire. A half-hearted effort won't cut it. When your desire to become the master of your thoughts and feelings, instead of them being the master of you, is foremost in your heart, accomplishing this feat will become simple with practice. Look at it as effortless effort, and know that which we persist in doing becomes easier. Let us review the definition of feelings and emotions. Feelings 1. To perceive or to be aware of, through thought, bodily, or emotional reactions, instinct, etc. 2. To produce an indicated overall condition, impression, or reaction. 3. The affective, causing emotions or feelings, aspect of mental life as distinguished from thought and from the intellectual aspects. 4. An impression produced upon a person, having sensation. 5. Marked by or indicating emotion. Emotions. 1. A strong surge of feeling, marked by an impulse to outward expressions, and often accompanied by complex bodily reactions. Any strong feeling, as love, hate, or joy. 2. The power of feeling, sensibility. It is imperative and essential that we understand the fine line of distinction between the definition of feelings and emotions as they apply to our lives. Any word or data chosen by our conscious mind establishes images within our subconscious mind. Repeat. Any word or data chosen by our conscious mind establishes images within our subconscious mind. Let's go back to the concept of thought being a seed, spoken of in Chapter 5, and review it because it is imperative to clearly understand the importance of what actually transpires. Every thought is a seed at the conceptual level. When a seed thought is planted in fertile soil, feelings already established, this seed and soil, thought feeling, will then depend upon prior programming and the intensity of the feelings. Create a reaction to that feeling or thought, or create the physical expression of that thought feeling. At this moment, something new is brought into existence. Now we have what is commonly known as an emotion. This emotion then becomes a living vibration, which fertilizes that seed soil with thought feeling, and we begin to grow our crop of effects, conditions in our life. In other words, thoughts and feelings create emotions that cause effects. Are we planting the seeds that will produce the crops that we wish to harvest? If we're looking for desirable effects in our lives that are productive and rewarding, we will naturally want to resolve and release any undesirable thoughts or undesirable feelings, the ones that cause undesirable emotions and effects. We will want to choose the most positive, mature, best seeds, thoughts, available, and plant them in the same kind of soil, our feelings, so that any emotions resulting from this planting will grow and yield a crop of the most desirable effects, emotions, and conditions. Canadian government and religious leader Nathan E. Tanner once said, "You cannot live right and think wrong any more than you can plant weeds and harvest grain." We cannot think weed thoughts and expect to harvest grain effects. Another way to put it is, you will reap from the law of the harvest that which you sow. So what are you sowing? And what is your harvest yielding? If you want to change your harvest to a different crop than what you're now yielding, it's imperative that your goal be singular, to recognize and own the negative aspects of both your thoughts and your feelings. Simple. Dr. John Borskinko's book, Minding the Body, Mending the Mind, offers an insightful guideline to assist a person in identifying emotions. Positive emotions create bodily sensations of openness and expansiveness. They invite the world in. The body feels relaxed even though some emotions, such as joy, are very energizing. In contrast, negative emotions create a tight, contracted feeling. Everything pulls inward. The world is pushed away. Positive feelings invite unity. Negative feelings invite isolation. Becoming a skilled observer of your own emotions allows you to make a conscious choice between love and unity, or fear and isolation. From the time of conception until we are adults, we're strongly influenced by the feelings, thoughts, and attitudes of others. These feelings and attitudes are supplied to us by those who love us, by those who teach us, and by those who interact with us on a daily basis. Those who interact with us include parents, other family members, playmates, school companions, friends, relatives, teachers, and other authority figures, as well as what we may ingest from observing the media. When a thought, in this case something someone said, is fed to us, and this thought creates a feeling that becomes energized by an emotional response, we then buy into what the person said, as though it were an authentic, actual, valid truth. Sometimes the thought fed to us may even be a further validation of our already established false or incorrect beliefs. Or that particular thought may start a new system of beliefs. These beliefs, which we see or think of as truth, may be correct or incorrect. Perhaps some of you can recall being taught not to make a mistake. Maybe as a child you were playing with something interesting, some possession of one of the big people. In your effort to find out more about it, you broke it, and you learned that grown-ups' playthings were considerably more fragile than your blocks. And there was also a chance that you were punished. In other words, your efforts to learn were rewarded with a spanking, and the association between mistake-making and pain was set up. In some cases, it's not even necessary for actual pain to occur. The threat of pain is often sufficient to alter the child's conduct. If you were told, "Don't do that, you'll hurt yourself," you certainly weren't encouraged to learn. We suspect that this business of learning, followed by punishment or threat of punishment, has something to do with the creation of the so-called inferiority complex. The person who feels constantly inferior to everyone else, who insists that everyone else is superior to him, has been taught to think and feel that way. And what better way could he be taught such a self-depreciating attitude than by being constantly corrected? He tries to do something, and a fond parent says, "No, darling, you're making a mistake. That's wrong. You should do it this way." The parent is sincerely trying to help, but a constant repetition of such help will also teach the child that he's wrong, that someone else is right. And after a few years of this, the child comes to the conclusion that he's just not very smart, and another case of inferiority begins to bloom. It is characteristic of the inferiority complex that the person who carries this mental burden is hesitant about taking action. He'd rather sit back and let someone else do it first, for that is the lesson which he has been taught. By being led to be uncertain about his actions, he grows to fear action. Action to him is the equivalent of making a mistake, and he doesn't want to do that. The person who's made to feel that he's continually making mistakes will then automatically embrace the feeling of guilt for being, as he sees it, so dumb and stupid. The feeling of guilt is then added to his negative beliefs about himself, and thus becomes further validation of his inadequacies and a sad, depreciating, and motivating factor in his life. One incorrect perception can lead to another, and another, and another, until the majority of the perceptions he has about himself are so distorted that he feels absolutely worthless. Remember, even if the perception is distorted and untrue, the body still believes it to be true. When a feeling or a thought validates what we already believe to be true, the emotion accompanying the validation gathers energy and becomes more and more indelibly fixed, rooted and ingrained in us. And this in turn is what profoundly governs our daily beliefs, attitudes, and actions from then on. Whatever our belief systems are, we draw situations to us in our lives like a magnet draws iron fillings that naturally validate our beliefs, regardless of what they are. When any feeling is aroused, it is generally triggered by our already established beliefs. We naturally have experiences in life that continue to prove that our belief systems are right as we see it. However, often we are the only one who perceives ourselves as being right. Once again, we draw those situations to us that validate our beliefs, correct or incorrect as they may be. Remember, the mind, heart, or feeling always has to be right. And when it is right, it thinks it's in control. And one always wants to be in control. Remember, too, all of this happens on a subconscious level. So once again, in order to get what we think we want, it's necessary that we change the feeling so that the feeling corresponds with the thinking, resulting in single-mindedness. At this point, you may ask the question, how can I really know if I'm single-minded? One of the best ways to know is by observing how your life is going. Do you enjoy loving and satisfying relationships with family and friends? Are you enjoying your work or role in life? Do you feel fulfilled? Are you experiencing desired results? Are you happy and peaceful most of the time? Do you enjoy optimum health? If the answer to these questions is yes, there's a strong indication that you're already single-minded in most areas of your life. If the answer is no, this indicates mixed messages are being communicated between the thinking and the feeling aspects of you. If you are continually disappointed in your relationships, in your business affairs, or in the circumstances of your life, and nothing seems to work, everything seems to go wrong. If you're not experiencing the desired results, and frustration plagues you, then you are undoubtedly being double-minded in particular areas of your life. The soul of your feelings would truly benefit by having some cultivation work done on it, in order to create a different and better environment, in order to bring you to single-mindedness. When you weed and cultivate your feelings, you're able to plant more suitable, more desirable, and more productive seeds, thoughts. In other words, double-mindedness can be overcome. You can bring your thinking and feeling into unison. These two factions, the thinking is in the head and the feeling is in the heart, need to get together. You can eliminate the conflict between the two. You can win the war that's going on inside. You can then reap a harvest more to your liking. Mainstream thinking has purported that to become single-minded, a person needs to change the way he feels by changing the way he thinks. It is possible to change the way we feel by changing the way we think. However, before we can do this, our perception of a situation or our belief must first change before our thinking can change. To illustrate this point, 4-year-old Victor, a very active, precocious child, loved to visit his grandparents because there were so many fun things to see and do. Victor's grandparents had a basement in their home with several rooms, one of which was a large, dark storeroom. Victor had only glanced into this room on one occasion, because Grandpa always kept the door locked and closed. One day, as Victor was playing in the basement, he wandered beyond his usual play area and noticed that the storeroom door was ajar. Being the curious 4-year-old that he was, he decided to venture into the storeroom and see what was in this mysterious sanctuary of interesting forms and objects. As he opened the door and peered into the room, the angle of the dim light coming through the basement window created an even more eerie scene than usual. He glanced around the room. Suddenly he saw the form of something that looked like a person. This was so frightening to him that he abruptly turned and fled upstairs to the safety of his grandmother's arms. From then on, his grandparents could not persuade him to even go downstairs, let alone play there. Finally, Grandpa, after months of observing Victor's apprehension and anxiety over his experience, and his flat refusal to go back downstairs, very lovingly took Victor in his arms and coaxed him into going downstairs with all the lights on in the middle of the day. Victor was very tense as his grandfather carried him down the stairs, but when Grandpa turned on the light in the dark storeroom and showed him that the scary thing was only an old upright vacuum cleaner with a sheet over it, Victor slowly started to relax, and the corners of his mouth began turning into a smile. A big smile covered his face as he finally saw how harmless the big storeroom was. The point of this story is to illustrate that Victor's perception was changed when he looked into the storeroom with the lights on, and in the protection of Grandfather's arms. In an instant, all of his feelings of fright, fear, anxiety, and terror melted away. All the fear energy stored in his little body from that original scary incident quickly changed. Victor was able to slide down out of Grandpa's arms and start playing in the basement once again. Altering our perception can happen in an instant, or it may take time. We can change our feelings by changing our thinking, but we must change our perception of the situation first. As adults, our perceptions may be more complicated than Victor's, but the principle is still the same. The older we are, however, the more challenging it may be for us to change our perception without the help of a psychiatrist or a professional counselor who's knowledgeable and understands these principles. Becoming better educated on the subject might also help, but this takes a considerable amount of time. Consequently, the change generally takes longer when going this route. Conversely, changing the way we think by changing the way we feel is extremely effective and far-reaching in our beginnings as a baby. Feelings came first when we had no way of expressing what we needed or wanted through words. The feelings we experienced during infancy and throughout our childhood, which we were unable to express, are well established long-standing feelings, which naturally registered in the DNA and the subconscious part of our mind-body. These feelings are what now cause us to think and react in life the way we do. In other words, these feelings have helped create the beliefs and attitudes that motivate our everyday behavior and give us the effects in life that we experience. Feelings are what make us tick. If we want to change the effects that undesirable feelings have created in our life, it'll be necessary to simply resolve the feelings. Resolving the feelings will also change the energy that these feelings have brought with them. We in our subconscious can go back to where undesirable feelings began and change the vibration, change the energy of these negative feelings. This process reprograms the subconscious and literally changes the undesirable programming. This process will be explained in Chapter 7. But what about thoughts? As children, we function primarily from the right brain, from the feeling and intuitive side, because we've not developed the conscious thinking, analyzing process. When we start venturing out as we become more mobile, we explore, learning by what we experience. Sooner or later, we start getting hurt or are told no, no, over and over again. We are punished for doing something wrong when we didn't mind. As we hurt ourselves or receive punishment for something we did, we soon learn that choices have to be made every time we turn around. Literally. We also learn that if we make wrong choices, we usually get hurt or are punished for it. So we eventually reason out in our little mind, if we don't want to get hurt or invite displeasure or punishment from others, what we need to do or not do in order to forego pain. We start putting two and two together, and little by little we begin to shift, to move over into the left brain where the logical thinking and analyzing takes place. Then when we start going to school, we are bombarded with left brain activities, rules, regulations, reading, writing, math, etc. Yes, this is all a necessary part of life. But isn't it sad how we lose our spontaneity, our enthusiasm, our desire to explore and reach out? We often go from functioning and responding to our feelings because our feelings don't seem to serve us very well, to functioning and responding to our thoughts and thought processes. So, there does come a time when the thoughts or thinking cause our actions. But remember, the thoughts are still based on our feeling nature, on our feelings being triggered at some level. We can change our thoughts, and this can change our feelings and our actions. However, if the thoughts are caused by unresolved, deep-seated feelings that are governing our existence, the thoughts will reoccur time and time again unless we resolve the core feeling. A thought remains only a thought until a feeling joins it and causes a response or a sensation within us. The emotion. Each emotion has a personality all its own. It is an entity. Most of the time, the emotions that we experience is a reaction to an illusion that's already in our belief systems. This emotion may cause us comfort or discomfort. If it causes us discomfort, our inner child, that aspect of us that usually perceives things incorrectly, that aspect of us that still has a lot of hurts and unresolved feelings, is being challenged, and we immediately move into a defensive or survival mode. At this point, the emotion may be a new emotion, validating an established belief, or what we are feeling could be a tired, old shop-worn extension of something that's already resonating within us. Something that has been lying dormant, but is now being revived and regenerated, registering in every cell of our body. Or what we are feeling could be old feelings that we don't want to accept or allow in ourselves. So we repress, suppress, or stuff them and pretend they don't exist, thinking they might go away. These feelings and emotions are nevertheless registered in our subconscious and in every one of our cells' intelligence, the DNA, thereby propagating our belief systems, affecting our whole electrical system, our body, for good or for not so good. I'd like to share a graphic illustration of this principle as related by my friend Sharon. Here in her own words is her story. I remember the time, the hour, almost to the second, where I was sitting, what I was thinking and feeling, just like it was yesterday, even though it's been over 2 years. It was midnight, and I was working feverishly to finish preparations to leave at 3 o'clock that morning to drive to San Francisco. I was in the basement at the desk, typing on the computer, attempting to finish an important document. I had an extremely busy and frustrating day, and at that late hour I still had 14 things to finish. I was tired, on edge, worn out and stressed, actually bent out of shape, from not only the day, but from the mental exertion of being a pro se litigant. We couldn't afford an attorney. And to make matters worse, in my mind, my husband had left for a 20-minute errand that had lasted already only 3 hours. Where was he? Dead? Hurt? Why didn't he call? Why wouldn't he think of what was going on inside of me and know that I would be worried sick about him? We were going to leave for San Francisco for a very important court appearance where we were defending our rights of claim in a bankruptcy case with a very large corporation. We had a relatively large sum of money involved, large to us, and the outcome of the decision meant a lot to us. The longer I sat there, the madder I got. I fumed, I fussed, I fretted, I stewed, agonized, and thought of all the things that I was mad at him for. I thought mean, hateful, bitter thoughts about my husband. My husband had a weakness or tendency, in my mind, to waste time, putter around, and procrastinate, put off, dawdle, dilly-dally with things until we managed most of the time to be late to functions, and seemed to be always on the late and cutting, rushing edge of behind the time curve. He would always find, or would they find him, someone to talk to and visit with, no matter where we went or what we were doing. He drove me nuts with what I thought was wasting my time. Certainly his time wasn't important to him, in my mind. As I sat at the desk, raging and ranting, foaming at the mouth, in my mind, I felt surging waves of resentment, billowing currents of suppressed anger, red hot anger. Yes, even hate. These emotions welled up, soaked, drenched, swept and immersed me with such force. I was almost overcome by the intensity of the fury I was witnessing within myself. It was almost as though I relished and regaled in those feelings that I was entertaining. I was right, and he was wrong. My husband was such an inconsiderate and insensitive oaf, I thought. Why couldn't he see that he is causing me such pain, suffering, and consternation? I thought thoughts of ugly things, and was shocked at the power, force, and energy that those thoughts elicited and produced within me. Just at that moment, my husband walked through the door. I was at the height, in my mind, of ugliness, and I locked onto the idea of resentment and anger so profoundly that I decided in my mind to not even speak to him. Certainly, he would know that I was upset because he had been gone so long. Certainly, he knew the errand was only a 20-minute project. Certainly, he knew that I would be this hostile. In my mind, my self-talk went on, justifying to myself my rage, my anger, and resentment. Yes, I was feeling pretty high, knowing that I was right, and he was miserably, undeniably wrong. Through clenched teeth, I impolitely asked where in the world he had been. Not that I cared a whit. He apologized, saying that he had been gone a long time, but he had met an old Air Force friend, and they visited and talked for a while. The time had gotten away from them, and then he had gone to wash the car, and when he looked under the hood, he saw that he needed to change all the hoses on the car. He's a master mechanic and is very fussy and caring about the vehicle and its roadworthiness. And while I knew that what he was saying was only for our well-being and safety, when one is on a negative emotional high, logic and reason counts for nothing. And you certainly don't want to hear reasonable, safety-minded reasons now. He was innocent. I knew that deep in my heart. But I couldn't unlock the hold that the powerful, fiery emotions had on me. Well, I screeched, ready to blow apart. Do you know what time it is, and that we have to leave here in less than 3 hours, and all the things are not done that need to be done? Those things that he said he would take care of doing. And I'm under terrible pressure and stress, and why couldn't you call me and let me know that you're not dead? Never mind that he's under pressure and stress, and he will have to drive because I'm so exhausted I need to sleep before court this morning. As the feelings and emotions swept over me and settled, I mentally remember thinking the thought, I'll take care of this crap and handle this myself. At that point, I actually locked and internalized all those emotions. I literally felt it lock into the front, left side of my body. These feelings of annoyance, resentment, aggravation, etc., had been festering for many years. This was finally the straw that broke the camel's back. Critical mass, an explosion of immense proportions, had now been invoked, and the exponential factor, an avalanche, was now in place. Those molding, festering feelings, charged by the powerful forces of negative emotions, became irreversible. The environment in my body had been waiting for a match to light the fuse. That incident took place around the 1st of October in 1987. I started having constipation problems, but just thought that it was because we'd been traveling and I was reacting to sitting. Not to worry, it was no problem. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I noticed little red specks that looked like rust in my stools. I thought, that's interesting. I've never seen anything like that before. I decided to make an appointment with a doctor. I saw the doctor the day after Thanksgiving, and the doctor diagnosed diverticulitis. He gave me some antibiotics and sent me home. The symptoms seemed to clear up, except that I still had a problem with constipation. But I knew that it would go away. Then I started feeling very tired. I wanted to sleep. I didn't seem to have any energy, and my stools became very odorous and noxious. Believe it or not, I could not smell it. I began to sleep more and more. I couldn't move. There was no energy. Soon I was unable to think clearly. On April 30th, I woke up early in the morning, sat up on the side of the bed, and heard a clunk, swish, slosh on the left side of my abdomen, and I thought to myself, that's interesting. Never heard anything like that before. So I went to the bathroom, and I was dumbfounded and astonished. The bowl was filled with blood. The doctors that day were very solicitous, By 3 o'clock that afternoon, I was in the hospital undergoing tests to find out where the bleeding came from. I was dumbstruck and shocked when I was told it was cancer. No, not me, I said. It's not possible. This could never happen to me. After the surgery to remove the tumor, I started thinking and wondering, why? How? How in the world could this happen to me? As I pondered about the situation, slowly, ever so slowly and painfully, I came to the full and awful truth staring me in the face, ugly and monstrous. The realization that I had been on a do-it-yourself project. I had, with no equivocations, no excuses, no blame of anyone else, done this to myself, and there was no other person in the whole world I could point the finger at and blame. I myself had set in motion that set of circumstances that allowed my body to internalize destructive feelings and emotions that created a dis-ease in a section of my body just above the sigmoid colon. A tumor that had to be surgically removed had perforated the colon wall and spilled into the abdominal area. A tumor was the result of anger, resentment, suppressed hurts, hate, meanness, and unforgiveness. In a word, ugly, black, negative feelings. Now, said I, what am I going to do about it? In my mind, I kept trying to weasel out of, sidestep, turn away from the awful, terrible realization that that person whom I thought was so untouchable to disease, had initiated, clearly and forcefully, the manifestation of such a dread, ugly, awful, frightening disease. All of a sudden, in a flash, I knew what to do. In an instant, I knew what I had to do and how to do it. I had been studying about illness and their emotional causes, and my husband and I had taken a seminar where we were taught to access the part of us that knows all things. I had created the tumor, but I could heal it. I had allowed and entertained those terrible, ugly thoughts, feelings, and emotions to putrefy, to torment, to mature, and to corrupt and erupt. Of course. Thank you, God. Thank you. I now see the lesson I must learn. I will love the cancer. I will love it. I looked at the cancer. I put my hands, in my mind, on the cancer, and I told the cancer, thank you for this great gift of knowledge. Thank you for allowing me to see what I have done. Thank you for giving me this chance to know myself better. Thank you for supplying me with this opportunity to live life to the fullest and to learn to love unconditionally. Thank you for this great blessing and opportunity. My attitude and demeanor changed instantly. I felt alive, vital. I was now ready, willing, and able to accept what I needed to learn and understand what was necessary from this experience to grow and develop and expand my reason for existence on this earth. I decided right there and then, and from that moment forward, I would not shift down. I would not allow those negative thoughts to be entertained one more second. I would not allow the luxury of a negative thought. And I would not allow my family to shift down and feel sorry for me and speak of my cancer. The cancer was not me. I'm not a cancer any more than I'm a cold or a flu. It would be known as the tumor with a message. No, absolutely not. There would be no self-fulfilling prophecies come to pass in my life like that. No. I was going to do what had to be done to change, shift, alter, renew, build, create new realities. I was in charge of my life and destiny. I would allow no quarter. I would be unmerciful. Yes. Nothing would deter me from the new road that I would travel and the journey I would begin. Yes, I am health. I am happiness. I am joy. I am unconditional love. I would, for the rest of my wonderful, exciting life, be that fulfillment of unconditional love. I had been given a second chance. This gift of new life and expanded view offers and bestows gratitude for fullness and thankfulness that I'm now able to understand a new dimension and fullness in my life. From now on, those memories of the hate, resentment, anger, and rage that I waged and wrought upon myself would only be remembered and used in a positive manner. And from this day forward and forever, this experience would be registered and considered as a minor inconvenience in my life. And that's the way it continues to be. God merely uses coincidence as a way of reminding anonymous Carol and I had been friends for years but hadn't seen each other since 1976. She called me when she moved to Las Vegas in 1989. As we were visiting that morning, she shared with me the concept of the script. Now, I'm one who says, "Will you share?" Your words strike a responsive chord. This knowledge I felt was vitally important to me, as I knew there were still many unresolved feelings I needed to work through. Carol did share the script, and I immediately began to work with it and use it. I noticed and felt an immediate healing shift occur. The script, I feel, has wrought and worked wonders. I have and do experience an unqualified peace, happiness, contentment, and healing release as I continue to process deep-seated and deep-seated negative emotional feelings dumped, stored, and buried for many years. The script has allowed an emotional stability and maturity to enter my life. As I explained in Chapter 2, every thought, every feeling, every emotion, and every belief that we have has its own vibration. Everything you've ever thought, everything you've ever felt, everything you've ever believed has been recorded and registered in the body somewhere. If your thoughts, feelings, emotions, or beliefs have been negative or positive, regardless of the intensity, it makes no difference. They have all registered in every fiber, nook, and cranny of your being. All those feelings, beliefs, and emotions have been recorded in the DNA of the cells of your glands, your blood, your lymph system, your organs, your muscles, in your flesh. Negative vibrations, fear-based, create a heaviness in you, while the positive vibration, love-based, create lightness. If you've experienced more negative vibrations than positive vibrations throughout your life, you'll feel an imbalance somewhere in your being. When the negative becomes so overbalanced, something finally has to happen to make you aware of this overbalance, imbalance. Whether the imbalance be physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, or financial. Many people will experience a crisis of some kind before they truly recognize that, as Dr. Bernie Siegel says, one needs to take another road in life. Some of us have to get to the point of crisis before we're open to the possibility that we would really benefit by changing or shifting to a new awareness. What is it that we need to change? We need to change negative feelings, vibrations that we've buried for untold years to positive feelings and vibrations. Negative feelings that pertain to any area of our life where challenges occur and keep reoccurring. We learn the lessons in life that we are to learn two ways, either through obedience to natural laws or through suffering and the consequences of not observing those laws. Through adversity. None of us consciously create the suffering we experience. Any suffering we may go through is due to natural consequences, the law of cause and effect being manifest in our lives. Are you learning through obedience or through suffering, adversity? When you look around at others, you'll probably agree that most of us are reaping the natural consequences of not observing the laws. Many of us are having to learn through adversity. The Lord often allows us to wallow in mindless confusion before the teacher within us follows the path that lightens our way. If we experience suffering long enough, being sufficiently miserable while we are going through it, we usually become more teachable and are ready to eliminate the misery, no matter what effort it takes or how much dedication it requires. There are people, however, who are very teachable and willing to travel a better road without experiencing misery and heartache. They hear truth and are ready to incorporate it into their lives without being tried and tested, without being miserable and having to undergo the suffering. At the turn in one's road where a person is miserable and ready for relief, he usually begins listening and looking for answers. He becomes more mindful of what he is thinking, of what makes him tick. He begins asking questions. He reads articles on the subject or attends classes and seminars. He searches for self-help books or tapes that give him insights that assist with answers which will help him ease and understand the pain he's experiencing. It is at this particular time a person is generally ready for change. For the quantum shift, he wants his life to be full, and he wants to feel fulfilled. He's tired of nothing working, tired of ill health, tired of disastrous relationships, or tired of financial ineptness. Now his mind has opened. He is more aware and is wanting and looking for answers. He is ready for a great adventure. But how does he go about making a change? And where does he start?